Thank you. Next item is Pledge of Allegiance, led by Councilmember Smith. Pledge allegiance.
Good evening. The time is now 7:02 p.m. and the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee of North Kansas City's meeting is officially begun. Today is July 18, 2021. Lisa, will you please take attendance?
Jess Loya is home with a sick kid. Brandy Alexander,
Here.
Daniel Trotter,
Here.
Gabby Flores is on her way, not here currently. April Jones,
Here.
Bess Bailey, out of town. Yvonne Salinas,
Here.
and Tara Adler.
Here.
Thank you for taking roll. We can go ahead and get started with the meeting today. Please forgive me, I am looking for the agenda at this moment.
We don't have, do we have meeting minutes from
Oh, yeah,
Jess?
She said she was going to email them as soon as she could.
Okay.
I could read through the notes that I took unofficially, I guess.
Okay. That
You
will
want me
help out.
to?
That's fine.
Okay. Let me go back and find that. Okay, at our work session last week, we discussed the strategic plan. Things to consider is adding a mission statement at the top of the page. Add the heading advocacy and consultation. The word regular is subjective, so we would like the form to include a variety of gatherings like coffee with a cop, et cetera, like that. Review hiring practices for the city for bias and equitable practices. We had citizens here that said they would like to actively recruit underrepresented minority groups and consider bilingual to be an advantage in the hiring process. When discussing the Citizens Leadership Academy, we had comments. If you can replicate city sensitivity training and bring it to the community, it would go through our Citizens Academy. Honor unrepresented groups through community events. Submit requests to the city council to have special dates recognized. 2 citizens commented that they feel the informal, cultural, and social events are a great idea and may be what actually brings about change and understanding. Another citizen said that it doesn't have to be a specific celebration and suggested monthly cultural events, which was later dialed back to quarterly. Encourage members of the community to get to know each other and work together. We added identify social media and marketing. Having an EIC Facebook page may not be possible. We'll have to work with the city to push out EIC events. And that wraps up most of our comments from our draft.
Thank you, Lisa. If anyone would like to make a motion to approve the minutes from our last work session.
Yeah.
And then we need a second.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, and then right now we are going to ask if there are any comments from any of our public that are here today. We ask that you limit any comments to 5 minutes at this time.
Hello.
Hi.
Big surprise. So I have a few suggestions and recommendations. One, I highly recommend exploring the EIC as a separate 501, whatever letter it's going to be under that, whatever category. I also recommend that before you get it too deep into strategic plans, that you put a business plan together. What is it going to cost to do the things that you want to do? What are your goals and objectives? And what's your 3-year plan for how you're going to do that? Just like if we were starting a business, we would want to have 3-year projections. This is what it's going to cost. This is what we're going to raise. This is what we have to do for financials. I think that will help you significantly in the process. Right now, it's set up that your board that you have to go to for permission for everything is the city council. And my recommendation is that you have a board that you go to, you have a budget that you put together, you have a plan that you put together, and that all stems from that business plan. And then you know clearly what you're going to be doing and what your objectives are. Much like your business council, much like the Parks and Rec Department, any of the other ones that get funding from the city, including Snake Saturday, we have to put a budget together, it gets approved, but we also have these plans that we put into place. Because you've got policy oversight, you've got advocacy, community outreach, and orientation for the community. You've got lots of things that you want to do, but you don't have a plan. And the strategic plan, for me, from a business perspective, as a business coach, is the strategic plan is what you do first to implement specific pieces of your larger business plan. Does that make sense? So I don't know all the legalities and everything behind it, but I think it would behoove this committee, to explore that as an option. I think it also does something for a community, because then it's still a city entity, but it's not a city entity. Does that make sense? There's no appearance of conflict of interest. Those are just my suggestions that I think would help you along the path. Also keeps you very tight and focused on what you're going to do, because you have a lot of dreams and you've got a lot of people that are jumping off and doing little projects and starting things, but you're not cohesive. And that, a confused mind never buys. So if you want the community to buy into what the EIC is going to accomplish, then we have to take the confusion out of it for your consumer, which is your B2B, your businesses. It is your residents, your B2C. It is the community at large. So you have to take the confusion out of it. And I think if you had a business plan, I know you have your bylaws, but bylaws and business plans are not the same thing. Does that make sense? Okay.
It does.
Just my 2 cents.
Is this possibly something that we could look at putting on the agenda for our next work session or meeting?
We can put anything on our agenda, yeah.
Okay. Yes, sir?
Can I join the public comments, please?
Yes.
Thank you, appreciate it. Brian DeLong, Mayor. We did get a budget amendment in. Sorry I was late. I don't know if you guys already discussed this. $2,000 now in case you have, individual items. It could even be something like printing. But you guys now have a budget to kind of, start some of these initiatives off of. And then next budget year, as we've mentioned before, we'll find a larger place for, get you a little bit more money. So that's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. We appreciate that. Are there any additional comments from the public? Okay, thank you, Mindy. Any thoughts from the council on what was just discussed by Mindy or the committee? I apologize.
I think there are valid points with that. I do think, because all of our meetings have to be public, I would really like to complete our strategic plan so we have a clear vision as a focus. So I think we're getting closer, and hopefully we can do that. And as we discussed last week, when we do have that set up and we know our direction, we can then split off and work with people in the community, everybody, to go from there.
Just point of clarification. I am the mic person. I know, and I try not to get a hold of the mic too often. Point of clarification, I understand what you're wanting to do with the strategic plan, but it's kind of the cart ahead of the horse. When you look at what it's going to take for the EIC with all of your ideas and what you want to do, what is it going to cost to do that and do it well and execute it to the extent that you want to? Because you guys have some amazing plans and ideas. And you can do it that way. You can do the strategic plan first, but you're going to end up going back and doing the competitive analysis and market analysis anyway. So you're going to do it on front end or back end. My suggestion is pause, do the business plan. It doesn't have to be a 42-page business plan. It can be 4 or 5. It doesn't have to be a laborious and arduous process to do it. But I think some of the best practices for business, because you are going to be operating, if you're spending and receiving money, it's a business, whether it's for-profit or nonprofit. And the only thing between a for-profit and nonprofit that's different is what you do with the money, what you do with profits. So if you know what it's going to take to do what you want to do you need an executive director, a paid staff person to do it? Are you going to be able to leverage enough volunteer hours? There's a lot of research that goes into that about how you can actually execute the things that you want to do. And the business planning process is how that's done. So again, that's just from a business coach perspective and wanting you to be uber successful. And also knowing when it comes to budget year next year, what do you ask the city for? And how do you justify what you ask the city for? Right now, you could say, I need $40,000, and the city's gonna be like, what? Why? How? What do you need it for? And you don't know. So.
Thank you.
Budget, we definitely are gonna need to figure out what we need in terms of money. I think from our perspective, we're looking at the strategic plan as somewhat of a business plan. And then trying to figure, yeah? Is it not, is it picking up okay? Okay. But the strategic plan from our perspective is what we want to do. And I think some of the things that you're saying, we're just not there yet. But we still are going to need a budget, and we're trying to figure out what we're going to do in the short term and long term to ask the city for what we need. I guess I don't know from a city perspective, are there other entities similar to what you're talking about, Mindy, that are set up that way in North Kansas City?
That was my question, too.
Do you mean in regard to having a city staff person?
The 501, whatever the fee.
So the Business Council receives funding from the city. Snick Saturday receives funding from the city. They are their own 501c, depending on what entity it is, what letter it is. It's kind of a separation of church and state concept. It's and this is part of the issue, what does the city want the EIC to be? Do they want it to be a department of the city? And in which case, is there a staff person that's going to be hired for it? I mean, there's some questions here that we're doing the strategic plan right now without having answered all of those fundamental foundational questions. That's where ambiguity comes in. And that's where the community at large doesn't understand everything that you're wanting to do. And what you want to do is set it up so that everyone can get on board and get excited about what the EIC is going to do. So there's some questions I don't have the answers to. Kim might not have the answers to them either. Mayor DeLong might not have the answers to them. But we need to ask the questions so that we know what the entity is going to be, what are you going to do. I know that you're looking at programming. The strategic plan is what do you want to do. But the business plan is what do you want to do, how are you going to do it, how are you going to fund it, where are your volunteers coming from. It's all of those details that kind of let you hit the ground running. Just the analogy, I see this all the time, business owners. Oh, I want to start a business doing XYZ. Oh, there's a space for rent. Let's go sign the lease. So they go sign the lease. And then suddenly they're like, oh, how are we going to generate revenue? How are we going to set up our legal entities? Oh, we need a business license from the city. We need all these things, but we didn't put any planning into it. And in the business world, 90% of the businesses that fail because of lack of planning. And you're trying to plan with the strategic plan. I'm just suggesting that maybe there's a more comprehensive way of getting you guys jump-started. That's all. So I'm really done this time.
I think part of the issue with that is that we've already been established as part of, the city council. It's already been established as an entity we're already entwined with the city council and all of that, and with the city government. And, like Tara was saying, we're just kind of using the strategic plan right now as an out, like, we have our goal, we've established our goal and everything. And now our strategic plan is what are the things that we are going to do towards that goal. Once we decide on what kind of activities and events and programs and stuff, then we'll be able to do more of that kind of stuff, like plan on each one. And then we're kind of limited as to how we can do that. We were gonna do with subcommittees, but then we have, restrictions on how many of us can meet on this at one time without it being, publicized and conducted publicly and all that. So there, some of the obstacles, I mean, I agree with what you're saying about doing the business plan and being more specific and cohesive and everything. But we're gonna run into some limitations that might make that a little bit difficult for us.
Unless you become a 501c whatever.
Nobody at home can hear you from there, I'm sorry.
Okay, if you're watching at home, I apologize.
That is my role here is to say, I'm channeling Stephen.
Okay. So totally understand that, and I understand that the city has already said, we want to do this. So we have this idea, we want to have a baby. And it's a great idea. We're not sure if we're going to have a baby or adopt a baby or foster a baby, but we want a baby. And so we jump in and we start the processes, but we're not really sure what we're going to do yet. And then suddenly the opportunities jump in front of us, and we get this opportunity, and you see it all the time. People adopt a baby and then find out that they're pregnant at the same time. And so sometimes it becomes overwhelming. And sometimes if we take that step back and we put the planning and forethought into, if we ask the city and the city council, what do you want the EIC to be? Right now, you could become a nonprofit. You could become a city entity, as it implies right now that you are, but there's still some ambiguity there. Mayor DeLong's willing to go to bat and help with funding and help it get going. But is that the right thing for the EIC for where you're going down the road and where you want to be? Those questions, you can do it, again, you can do it after the fact, after you get a strategic plan in place. But if you do it in the front end, you might have less growing pains. So it's just, after helping more than 350 for-profits and nonprofits get launched, this is the best advice that I can give you as an entity. If the city wants, because here's my hat as a resident. If the city wants the EIC to be a city entity, then the city needs to create a staff position. And because there's a lot of work to do, and volunteers aren't going to be able to do it all. You've got a lot on your plate. And so I have questions on, can a volunteer group do what you guys have up here in the bubble? I don't know. But we would know if you had the business plan in place, the plan of what you're going to do, what is your role. You would have less ambiguity, and you will get more support from the community.
Sorry. Thank you again for your comments. I don't know about anyone else. I kind of feel like it's makes a valid point. We do have really great ideas, but with the business plan, we may be able to get there. I don't know, better, or it's just we would have something defined. The strategic plan, that's like we said, that's programming, but we need clear-cut direction. We do need to see what are our city's most pertinent needs when it comes to equity and inclusion. So right now, we're swinging at just some things that we've heard in the community and a little bit of some stuff that we've researched. I don't know. Like we need to set a firm and steady foundation and then build on top of that. Strategic planning is great, but I do think we may need to go back and look at doing a business plan, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely echo that sentiment, like just having a lot of ideas, and none of these things are easy. I think that's the hardest thing, is that every little thing we're doing just has a lot of nuances to it, and it's sensitive material, so at the end of the day, it's very tough to get things done. But yeah, I mean, I think I think it could also be semantics too, whether it's a business plan or a strategic plan. I mean, I think if you really approach it the way we're looking at it, our strategic plan could be that business plan too. I mean, and I've never looked at this as a business, you know, until you mentioned that. So it's an interesting way of approaching it. I just hadn't thought of it like that. So that's just, yeah, how I feel.
Any other comments from the committee? All right. I believe we can discuss that at our work session to see how we can move forward. We need to do a recap of the city council's discussion on diversity and inclusion training for staff.
Is it okay if I do that? Okay. At our city council meeting, we discussed sensitivity training, equity and inclusion training. Our HR person, Casey, has actually gone through several different, what do you call it? Like examples courses, like where you get a little bit of it. And she said those are not all created equally, which we definitely know that. We talked about the difference between having an on-demand class and having an in-person trainer. So since we're talking about the city, this is important because we have people that work overnight. But mostly the consensus was an in-person trainer would be more beneficial as we think of this as an ongoing training and not a one and done check the box. We are not the only city in the area that's looking at doing this, and they are trying to be flexible with either creating an on-demand class or making changes. So the program that they really liked, they do have a meeting, I believe, next week. Is that correct?
I had it this afternoon.
Oh, you had it this afternoon. Well, then you can fill us in. But we had discussed maybe there's a possibility that people from the city could be trained to be trainers, and we could continue ongoing training that way. So do you have anything to share?
Hello, everyone. I don't think I've even had a chance to meet everybody. Hi, I'm Kim Nakahodo. I am the new Eric Berlin for this particular committee, serving in an interims role. So hello, everybody. I did meet with, what it is Mid-America Regional Council. They have a GTI division, which is their Government Training Institute. So they implemented diversity and inclusion training deck. There were 4 separate modules that they taught. It is new in 2021. It started rolling out, I want to say it was in February of this year. And it was kind of every other month they did one of the modules. And Casey, who is our HR manager, attended that. And again, so the city, we've been looking for something like this for well over a year. And Councilmember Tull kind of hit on it. We went through a lot of duds before we found this one. As you guys can imagine, it's a thriving industry, personnel training that is. So we went through quite a few versions before we landed on this one. This particular one that Casey went through, again, it was a 4-part series, and it was remote, so it was Zoom, but it was kind of an in-person. Had we not been in the middle of a pandemic, it would have been in person. So there were 4 different modules, and she had a fantastic experience. She highly recommended it. Again, it's tailored to government, not private sector. We are a little bit different. So there are multiple agencies. I don't know. Well, I guess one of them is public. So the UG, the Unified Government, is going through an 18-month process with GTI to train all of their governing body and every employee. They have almost 2,000 employees. So it will take them 18 months to do so. They have multiple training modules that they are kind of undergoing, and I believe their first training, I believe, starts in the next couple of weeks. So the particular vendor that they are using with that in partnership, so GTI went through a public process. So it was a competitive process where they invited vendors who specialize in diversity training and inclusion training, and then they vetted them through a pretty lengthy interview process, and they picked, I want to say it's Cultural Journeys, but boy, I'm grabbing at straws here. I want to say it was Cultural Journeys is the name of the company that they have partnered with for this particular training deck. The Unified Government is going through kind of a hybrid position, so one of the things that they had, chatted about was that there are on-demand modules which create a base of understanding, and then they do the training on top of that. So some of it that the on-demand that they do is really kind of going down to basics. What do these things mean? Terminology. So they create what they consider a common base of understanding. And then that is kind of phase one for that particular agency to go through, and then they're doing kind of one of the things that they had suggested for us is we're interested, and again, we have not received a proposal yet. They are working on one. We should have one proposal with a hybrid model in the next several weeks. It'll take them, they said, a couple weeks. We've been chatting about them with our needs, what we were looking for, the fact that based on the city council's discussion the other night, it would be available to the governing body, all boards, commissions, and every employee. So it's a little bit different. You got to kind of tailor that style of training, because you have managers, so you want to make sure that they're trained at a different level than your frontline employees, and then boards and commissions are just a little bit different. You don't have any of the hierarchy that maybe a manager and employee have, that dynamic. So again, it's a little bit different. That's some of the things that they're working for through their proposal with us, but it would be, they suggested us a hybrid model. Again, where you create a base of understanding through kind of webinars or videos, and then you do training on top of that, and just to ensure everybody has a base of understanding. So when they come into that space for that in-person dialogue, they have a common understanding. So those are some of the things that we're kind of pursuing. Happy to keep you guys up to date on what we receive, but like I said, I don't have a proposal just yet. We really want to make sure that anything that we enter into, it's mindful, it's intentional, and it's long-term. As Councilwoman told, we don't want this to be a check the box. This is going to be a longer form process for us. As you guys know, learning and growing, you have to give time for that to happen. That's not something you watch a video, you maybe do a little online quiz, and you're a changed person. So that's something that we're mindful of, that this is more of a journey. This is not a task, I guess it would be about the best way I can say it. Happy to answer any questions. I don't have a whole lot. I only spoke with the vendors for about an hour this afternoon.
We would be ways down the road from this, but did they give any thought to being able to train a handful of people from within the city government train them to be trainers for continued work?
So that did not come up in the hour conversation that I had with Mark. Some of what they had told us is one of the reasons why the UG specifically is outsourcing this is sometimes people are not comfortable speaking or asking questions to city staff, especially if it's a HR person or maybe a supervisory person, that sometimes a third person that an employee might be able to have a sidebar conversation and maybe be vulnerable or ask a question that they wouldn't feel comfortable asking to somebody in a supervisory position. That's kind of one of the reasons why they suggested an outside person. So we heard that dialogue, but when they said that kind of made sense. That is one of the reasons why an outside vendor is oftentimes seen as a good solution, is that, again, it's those sidebarred questions, it's the opportunity to be vulnerable and to kind of learn, and sometimes that supervisory or perceived supervisory dynamic shortens those sidebar conversations. So I think that we could potentially look into a train the trainer, but gleaming that little bit of information I thought was pretty useful for us to understand that.
Kim said Mark. I just wanted to make sure you guys knew that's Mid-America Regional Council, in case you wanted to look it up later on your own.
I don't know. Oh, there we go. So I apologize for being late. I was stuck in a pharmacy line and I was wedged in two cars and I couldn't get out. So I heard you say that Mark has subcontracted with Cultural Journeys? Okay. And so the proposal is coming from Mark with the anticipation of continuing to contract with that same vendor?
They would go through a public process again
Okay.
within a couple of years. So what Government Training Institute is so Mid-America Regional Council, which the city is a member of. It is an organization that has 119 cities in it. It has 7 counties and 2 states. And one of the things that they do is they offer local government training. That's kind of that arm. One of the nice things is smaller organizations, you know, very much so like us, but when I served in previous organizations, what they do is they do a lot of this due diligence work and then offer training. Many of our employees go through a lot of the training through GTI. A lot of our frontline employees, you know, kind of how to deal with difficult customers. We actually send several of our employees through the GTI program, through different programs. One of them is when we promote an employee to a supervisor, sometimes those friendship dynamics have to change. And sometimes those employees to managers, they just need a little bit of training. It might be the first time that they've ever supervised or managed anybody. And we want to make sure that we're growing our employees. I mean, kind of the thought process is when you hire an employee in, over many years, they learn skills, they learn your organization. We feel it's a retention item, that if we grow them into a manager, well, you don't just fill out an HR paperwork and that happens. You have to provide the correct training to ensure that that person, as they make their transition, becomes a successful manager. So they offer a myriad of different classes. Diversity and inclusion is new to their slate of classes that they offer. I'm hoping that I'm not droning on, I hope, but just to kind of give you some context as to what that is. They have several different vendors depending on the class, and then those vendors have contracts of service, and then when that contract is up, if there's a continuance clause with that particular agency, they may just continue on or go through the public process again.
Okay. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Kim, was there any thought, I know that you talked about how uncomfortable some staff may be if, like, a supervisor or someone was doing the training, there wouldn't be any openness or transparency. Was there any thought to maybe, I know we mentioned that we could get trained if we're on a committee. Was there any thought for maybe pulling from one of us to allowing us to do the training with the city?
I think if that's a desire, once we get that proposal, that's something I can ask about, is if they have a train the trainer module. I can definitely ask. Like I said, I'm probably 4 to 6 weeks out for them putting their proposal together. They wanted to kind of chat, and Casey's on vacation this week, so I wanted to make sure that she has a chance to dialogue about the needs that she sees from her side of the fence. You know, I kind of shared some of the concerns that I see. One of the things that I kind of had mentioned during the city council meeting is, you know, we're also mindful that these particular coaches and mentors and teachers, they have content that they've personally developed. And, you know, when you do it within a council or an open meeting session, they may not be so excited for me to live stream the content that they've maybe spent 10 or 15 years creating. So just those are some of the things that when I was chatting with GTI, I wanted them to be mindful of, is that, you know, governments, we are a little bit different. So some people maybe don't mind their content, their secret sauce, as it were, to be live streamed, but some people, you know, that's how they make their living. We're mindful of that as well as some of the multiple shifts. But if there was kind of a public focus, or if this body would like to kind of be trained on maybe some of the different modules, again, there's multiple different modules there. I think that that's something I can ask for to be included in the proposal.
Okay. Thank you. I was just curious.
Can I ask one more question? Did somebody have, okay. So is Mark or GTI open at all to a different vendor? And I say that just because I have experience with that vendor and his credentials. And so that's all I'm going to say. But I just wonder if they might be willing to consider or partner with a different vendor, or if that's the one that they have right now.
I would have to ask them. I'm sorry, I can't speak on their behalf.
Okay.
Like I said, that's who they've gone through their competitive process with.
Okay. It'd just be worth an inquiry if they'd be willing to explore a different vendor. Or when is their RFP process again, you know, so.
So I have 2 thoughts. The train the trainer, if I'm understanding correctly, we were kind of thinking more towards if we could be trained, then we could go out into the community and train. More so than an inward and an internal training? Is that,
I was kind of thinking twofold,
oh, okay,
because we know this is an ongoing thing. It's not going to be 1 month or 1 year.
sure.
You know? But it sounds like it's a good start for where we are, and having committees and boards and commissions in on the training, I think is a great step by the city. So I think that's a great start.
And I would just add 2 cents, which is that you always have to think about new staff, new board members, new mayors coming in, and what's the plan for onboarding those folks into the education or philosophy. Sometimes it ends up being that they get, there's a good push now, but then they'll get like a little module later, a little e-learning module. So that was part of my comments the other night, was that you have to think about those pieces because you want to bake it in. You don't want it to be some sprinkled on top. So
Definitely. And then my other question is, will we be able to look at that proposal when it comes through as a committee?
What I was kind of thinking of is it would actually be a city council work session. So, you guys are more than welcome to join us for that particular one. The proposal would be pinned, it'd be part of the agenda, and then I was gonna ask, GTI to come in and present. That's kind of my working plan right now. If I could just real quick, that was one of the things that I had brought up in the proposal, is I think that we would need a base set and then we would need an annual, because we do have employees come on and off. For us, it would be part of our onboarding. We onboard employees quite often, and there's lots of steps involved in this, so it would be adding that to that. And then as, I'm looking at this through the long-term lens, at least from the staff perspective. Topics change. It's just, I look at this just like any other training event. It's not a one and done. That's why I said that I'm looking at this kind of in a very long-term lens. I find training, personal growth, development, whether that's personal or professional, that takes time. You have to give process time. Growth happens slowly. We've all either had little kids or planted something in a garden. You don't just plop the seed and then next day you got the oak tree. So we're looking at this through a long-term lens, and again, that's why the UG's looking at this as an 18-month base set, and then they would go through kind of what that would look like as the topics change. Anybody who's sat through harassment training sees that it used to be person to person, and then as these things came on board, we had to talk about these and include them into that conversation. And to me, diversity and inclusion is the exact same thing. What we're talking about today, what you guys are talking about today, won't be what you guys are talking about in 3 years, won't be what you guys are talking about in 5. So just as your board and commission will grow and change, so will training that's associated with it.
That's helpful. I mean, I think we would like to be included in that work session for that proposal, to have eyes on it and be in discussion.
I agree. I think as the Equity and Conclusion Committee, we do need to be able to evaluate or just give input before the city council makes a final decision on that vendor.
I had one question. If I heard you right, Kim, you said that our city's commissions or committees would be able to take part in that? Like that was part of the proposal you requested?
That is, and I kind of that was the consensus I had heard. Hopefully I'm getting that right from the staff perspective, from the dialogue that the city council had, was that they wanted us to kind of go nose to tail, meaning governing body, boards, commissions, committees, and all city staff. So that's how I have requested the proposal.
Any further comments from the public or the committee at this time in regards to the training?
Having spent over 20 years in nonprofit and been a trainer for Prevent Child Abuse America and another 10 years consulting with the nonprofits, having a train the trainer on staff is going to be expensive because they have a lot of trainings that they're going to have to keep up. As Kim said, there's a lot of changes that will happen. And so that's where the funding issues start coming in. As you decide what model you want to be as an EIC, let the geniuses be genius. We could do a whole lot here, and we're still never going to know everything that we need to know about equity and inclusion. It is such a massive topic. Even those that are experts in certain parts of it. And so my recommendation is certainly looking at the GTI and what they're offering and the competitors that they have, competitive analysis again, look at all of the competition out there that are offering equity and inclusion trainings is really important to what you want to do, because what we have going on in North Kansas City is very different than what's happening in New York City, for example, or even over in the unified government of Wyandotte County. So my encouragement to you continues to be evaluate, and look at the cost-benefit analysis, because most times hiring a trainer in-house, they're going to spend a whole lot of time. It's not a part-time position, and there will be expense that's associated with it.
Thank you for your comments.
Can I ask one more question? I'm sorry. Maybe this is a Mark question. Do they anticipate maybe, because, they add new content to their regular course curriculum at GTI, whether it's new Office 365 or whatever. Do they anticipate somewhere down the road that they would have DEI content that then any new staff later could then go like they would for Excel spreadsheets or for customer service training through the GTI? Do they think that's one of their long-term goals, is to add this content into their regular teaching curriculum?
I can't speak for Mark.
Of course.
But they have had, a lot of inquiries from municipalities now that they've got their first wave done and they've gotten the feedback from those 4 modules. They've gotten a lot of inquiries we're not the only municipality asking about them. So there's a lot of inquiries about that. So I wouldn't imagine it's going anywhere, but I don't know what their long-term goals will be.
Thank you for answering all of our questions as best as you could. So moving forward, in the interest of time, we're going to kind of close out the discussion on the diversity training right at the moment, and then I'm pretty sure in next meetings are coming up. If we have questions, we can send them to Lisa.
And Kim will keep us updated.
Okay. And of course, Kim will keep us updated, like Lisa said. So just moving forward, we need to jump into meeting norms. We need to define and discuss the types of meetings, and we're really lucky because we had Lisa who helped us on that. So if you want to take that over.
Thank you. I want to start by saying, I'm used to having everyone on the screen and I can see everybody's face, so I feel like the back of my head is to you guys all the time. So I want to start by saying I'm really, really proud of the work that you guys have been able to accomplish in this time. And I know that there's pressure to hit the ground running, but you are laying the foundation, and I'm really proud of that. I am also proud of our city for making us a committee from the city within the city. And I think that legitimacy is important, and I thank them for that. Being part of the city, as I think April said earlier, has its limitations. So we can't do group planning unless it's public. And in the interest of saving time, I would really like to kind of set expectations for different types of meetings so that we're able to get the work done. Now, I know that we are going to want to have open forums with the community, and I think we can make that one of the 3 types of meetings. I laid out some examples of what we could do. This is not a final draft. It's just something to get us started talking. Today is one of our regular meetings. And so I defined a regular meeting, the purpose to approve agenda items and accomplish goals that must be worked on together. Public comments would be at the beginning. We'll have work sessions like we did last week. The purpose would be committee work, schedule community comments within the agenda. For example, it could be at the beginning, or it could be after a big ticket item, but have that written into the agenda. And then a community session, or we can call it a public forum, would be more like workshopping, where it's all open conversation. We're really just trying to get conversation with the community and their feedback. Those are just examples, but if you guys could maybe throw your 2 cents in, see what you think of those, what would you change? And we can identify these types of meetings moving forward.
I like the option of having a community session. I think that would give the community more time to come and talk to us. It's just open dialogue. Because right now, we're doing our regular meetings and we're trying to get through that in our work sessions. And there's a lot of the community that wants to come and talk to us. So I think that's perfect. And I think it'd be nice if we could do one every other month, should we have the time.
I have a technicality question. Is there guest Wi-Fi? Because I can't access my, okay. Oh, thank you. And then this might be it might be written down in the agenda, but thank you, guys. So a regular meeting, like tonight, is open to the community and to the public. Is a work session by definition closed, or is it defined?
It would have been
open?
like last week. Everything we do is open, unless we were in executive session.
Okay.
And I can't think of any reason why we would be in executive session, correct? Or is that not even possible? I saw you shaking your head.
Highly, highly unlikely that you would do anything
That's what I was
that
gonna
meets,
say. I
that
can't
meets
think of-
the statutory requirements.
Yeah, I
Okay.
don't think there would be any reason for us to do that. So every meeting is public.
Okay.
Even if we did a community forum, it doesn't always have to be here. Like, we could schedule to do it at the Parks building, just an open forum where you're mingling. You would pick a space for that. It doesn't have to be here. It just has to be, it has to be up on the website and advertised 48 hours before it happens. But we're flexible. I mean, our monthly meetings, our regular meetings like this one, they're going to take place here at 7 o'clock on the second Thursday of the month. This is set. But the other two, we can schedule as needed.
Can you designate, like, so what happened with our work session? I don't know when that was, 2 weeks ago? I'm not sure, I've lost track of time. Are you able to, similar to the way that city council runs, there's an agenda, but there's a clearly delineated time for public comment. Are you allowed to do that in terms of setting an agenda?
Yes, and that's actually what I'm proposing.
Okay, so we would carve out time for open, but not, because it kind of, our work session became the third option, right? A
Yeah.
community forum, okay.
So something like that, where we're talking about strategic plan to ensure that we make it through the strategic plan options, you may schedule member comments at the, like, after that, so we can get
Okay.
the feedback
Uh-huh.
on what was said. But also, there's always the ability to sit and listen and contact us via the phone number or email, or the comment section on the webpage. So it's not like we're totally closed off, but we do have a lot to get through, and I'm just trying to help us move forward.
Got it. Do you need a motion?
Well,
Are we that official?
I love this. I think this is a great idea.
that works for you? Okay, I just wanted your feedback. It doesn't have to be like this, it's just something to start the discussion.
And our bylaws are broad enough to allow for these things, because we have it, to schedule as extra meetings as needed outside of our regular meetings, so.
I do think it might be helpful to add this to the bylaws, that we have some definition. I don't know. I think just because, I don't know. I think this is well put, and we do need to define it and make it concrete.
It'd be easily accessible for the next people that came in if we did it that way, so I can work on that.
Okay. All right, any public comment in regards to our meeting norms, defining those, And any comments from the committee? Okay, thanks.
Do we need to vote on
Oh,
those
yeah.
to get them?
Yep,
To
I can
amend the
call
bylaw.
roll. Do. Brandy,
Yes.
Daniel,
Yes.
Gabby,
Yes.
April,
Yes.
Yvonne,
Yes.
and Tara.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Next on our agenda is the strategic plan updates. So if you scroll down, if everyone has, I know not everyone in the audience has a copy of the agenda, but, we did, I think it was Gabby, myself, and Jess, we all went through the strategic plan and we kind of made some adjustments. Gabby, since you created this beautiful document, would you like to go over it?
Can I stop just a minute? This is in the packet. Is it
Oh, is it?
possible to put it on the screens if it's on the computer up here?
Thank you, Lisa. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're up, then you can do that too, or you can find out whatever you need. Well, you'll need to trip over yourself first, and then email it to me, that's not the packet, I just need.
On that last, looks like page 3. Yeah. Thank you. So if you all can see this document or looking at your phone, everything in yellow are the proposed changes. So Gabby, you want to take it away?
Actually, just a slight addition to what Brandy just said, and just to give people some context. So after our work session, Jess had notes, I had notes, and Lisa had notes. And so this is a distillation of all of those notes and a reorganization of what April had done, had given us like a draft 1, and then based on our conversation from the work session, we just kind of coalesced it all together. The stuff in yellow, so Jess kind of did that initial work, and the stuff in yellow was what we did together as a small group, a three-headed group. And so we just kind of put it into those buckets that we described at the work session. So the yellow's really just for consideration. Those were kind of newer concepts. The stuff that's not highlighted is really, we just want to make sure that we captured people's thoughts from the work session effectively. So I don't know if we want to talk further about, each one, because I know that sometimes we can get stuck pretty easily on that. And obviously, there's stuff at the top that we wanted to recommend, like our mission and to Mindy's recommendation, having a purpose statement, or I can't remember the terminology she used, like intention statement or something like that. So we kind of just put that as placeholders at the top of the document. We do have a mission, but I didn't know if we had a vision or not, so. And then our bylaws, are those posted on our website or in a Google Drive somewhere? 'Cause I have Google challenges just sometimes accessing them, so.
My understanding was that they were on the website.
Okay.
But I don't remember. I
I'll
know we
look that
put
up
them
if
in.
you guys want to keep
Okay.
rolling on this stuff.
If we want to just go over everything in yellow,
Sure.
that might help.
And
Then we
make
don't-
sure that that the buckets look okay and make sure that we captured your sentiment or your thoughts from the meetings. Thanks. Who's driving? You're driving, Kim? Thank you. I was like, I don't know, looking for somebody. So under the first bucket, we kind of also repositioned the buckets, not in order of priority or like something's more important, but we talked a lot about community outward focus and community engagement. So we just kind of started there. We tried to add some of the discussion that was talked about, annual cultural festival and monthly cultural gatherings for sharing. Oh, that's a dangler, I didn't finish. For sharing cultural, heritage, I think was the terminology that was used. Honoring underrepresented groups through community events, for example, Pride and Juneteenth, which was voted on Tuesday and recognized by the city. So continuing those kinds of acknowledgements at the city level. Seeking out opportunities for collaborative grants and funding outside of city budgeting. So maybe working with our nonprofit partners in the community to do some collaborative DEI work that impacts citizens, nonprofits, those kinds of things. Develop measures for success for community engagement. You'll see that this one is repeated in each bucket. Importantly, we need to be able to measure accomplishments in each of these areas. And so this is really just a framework. And I think we envisioned that moving forward, we had talked about kind of a strategic planning retreat. A couple of, 2 or 3 hours, I'm just going to make up on a Saturday or Friday night or something like that. We would then unpack this. This would just be our beginning place. But those measures are really critical because when we looked at Beaverton, for example, in Oregon, they have a beautiful chronology of all of their metrics and all of their accomplishments over there. They started their journey, I think, in 2013, maybe 2014. So it'll be important for us to figure out as a group, what are we measuring that demonstrates success in each of these headings. Moving on, any questions about community engagement? Oh, shoot.
I think monthly is a great goal, but maybe writing it in as quarterly is more realistic to start.
Okay.
But that are just, our meetings are monthly. It just seems like monthly is going to be difficult to stay on top of.
And
I
we
agree.
did have that discussion, and I think, and we talked about that, and I think I was on a roll, so. Okay, I'll make these changes and then just send it out as we discuss it. I have a new iPad, so I'm not really adept at pulling up documents just yet. So I'll just do it old school, write it down, get it into the document. Okay, so change monthly to quarterly. And then that can always be changed later. We did also, I think, at the heading at the top, we talked about this being an 18-month plan, I believe, or 2 year. 2?
I believe it was 2 years,
Okay.
but we did discuss 18 months just in case.
So that's, I think, also for consideration. We would need to nail that down from when to when. And I think a retreat would allow us to really hammer out timelines and ownership, so I'm just going to make this up. Let's say Yvonne is going to be kind of the point person for community engagement. April's going to be point person for city practices. And then each of those teams could then develop a committee process and map out actionable things. The second bucket we called out as city practices. We had lots of really good conversation about that we as an organization are advocating, but we're also consultants to the city and to staff when stuff comes up. So I think the training is a really good example of functioning consultatively with city staff on finding the right training, for example. So similarly for RFP things or language. So let's say you wanted to add something about DEI into the city's RFP process. So this committee could help with those things. So we tried to be able to kind of call that out. The other two yellow items, we are kind of asking gently to consider a climate survey of staff and community. That's going to be an expensive endeavor, so maybe it's just exploration at this point, and then maybe future strategic plans would be an investment to kind of get a better sense of demographics in our community, and with our officials and governance structure. Recommend processes for city staff and council sensitivity training. So we went ahead and included that, and then found out kind of afterward that there was kind of already that process in place. But we just kind of went ahead and left it there because we would like to be engaged and involved in that process. Could you scroll down for me? Anything questionable about city practices or in the yellow? Yeah, Lisa.
I had something I'd like to consider adding. One of our goals is to make sure that there's diversity reflected in our local government. And we've already been asked by Mayor DeLong to assist in filling some of the boards and commissions with vacancies. And I think that we could write that down as something. There have been some ideas about people of NKC highlighting individuals that are on different boards with openings so people can see what they do and what it looks like.
Great. Okay.
Would that be the right spot for it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
All right. Could you scroll down for me? Thank you. Yeah, that's great. Looks like there's one more under city practices. Oh, that's the same one that I already mentioned. So each of these buckets will have some conversation. We'll have to figure out what measures of success we're going to look for. Number 3, we kind of called this visibility, marketing, and communications bucket. We talked about a lot of these, I think, were in April's original document, but we added a few items, like actually I failed to highlight, but we talked about curating a resource list that would live on the website so that community members and staff could find readings and podcasts and relevant topics related to DEI. I feel like I didn't highlight this section very well. Daniel, you'll be proud to know that we put G, maintain and update website with new content, is an important, piece. You don't want it to go stale, and you want to keep having new content. Okay, so any questions about visibility, marketing, communications, or ads or changes? Okay. Please, thanks so much.
Thank you
Oh.
for that recap.
We only had 3 buckets then, right? I thought in my brain I had 4. Sorry, I'm working on a project at work that has 4 buckets, so. Thank you, guys. Any questions or comments?
I like the idea of next step being a retreat to really have someone else kind of take the lead on guiding us. Because there's a lot of really great stuff here, and I think we have a lot of great ideas, but the planning piece of the strategic plan is tedious, and one of us shouldn't be in charge of that piece of it in addition to trying to be active in the conversation. And so maybe that is where some of our funds that we've been given kindly by the city come into play, to hire someone, maybe a consultant to help us with that piece of it.
Agreed. Any comments from the community?
I do actually have a question about that one too. There were 4 originally, and I think they got blended into 3. But one of the original strategic plans that I'm trying to find is asking businesses and organizations to get involved. And I don't know if that's been pushed into a different.
I think we talked about
engagement, maybe?
pushing it up to community engagement.
Yeah,
And I
okay.
thought I added community and business engagement, but maybe I did not. Because I remember we, and again, sometimes I mess up downloading from Google Drive. So I pulled it down as a Word document, and so.
Yeah.
Would you guys guys be okay if I added community and business engagement as that header? Okay.
Do we want the NKC United somewhere in here as well? I don't know, is that listed?
That was part of the,
Yeah, I actually have the original draft pulled up under asking businesses and organizations to get involved. That the NKC United Pledge was part of that. And then the providing the resources, educational materials, it looks like that got incorporated into that somewhere.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I will make sure to pull that back in to the community and business engagement.
Thank you. So we continue to move forward. We're looking at the North Kansas City United. So we're gonna review the logos, if we can pull those up. The logos are not final.
thank you for saying that.
We're gonna have more.
They're very rudimentary. It's just to get an idea of what people like, because then I'll have to work with actual graphic designers and use the city font and stuff. So this is like a kindergarten drawing of what we may eventually like, just for you guys to pick up what you like and don't like. So go ahead, sorry.
You're great. Thank you so much for doing this for us. The final draft, like Lisa stated, they'll be using the branding, the colors, and the fonts. And so what type of feedback do we have? I don't know how many we have to go through, but.
Like 7, you want to just scroll through them first
and then
go down?
Yeah, so Kim, if you would help us out.
Just, if you guys want to just give me an audio cue, like next, when you guys are done looking at the slide. That way I'm not going too fast or too slow.
Perfect. Okay. Next. Yep.
Ooh.
All right.
And we could fit more colors on there, but I only know how to use PowerPoint, so I had to move and rotate every single letter. So I stopped at 4, but it wouldn't have to look like that. It's just like a basic idea.
All right. Next. Okay. Next, please. All right. Next. Next. Next, please. All right. Those look great. I
can't
like
believe you
the.
did that in PowerPoint.
That's the only thing I know how to use.
I like the quote.
That was Yvonne.
I like that too.
Yeah, so can we marry that with like?
We can
this-
do any combination of these things. And actually, that was Yvonne's, and Yvonne had some feedback on how she wanted that to look. So go ahead, Yvonne.
Yeah, I just like image number 2, and I was thinking maybe we could put that where change begins under NKC. And just because you mentioned something last week about change, and I was like, well, like Mindy said, we needed something. So I figured maybe this is where change begins, and I don't know, just thought I'd bring that up.
I like that idea because I really do like the where change begins. And then as much as I personally love rainbows, I don't want to, that's associated with LGBTQ, and we don't want to make it seem like that's what we're limited to. So I like that second one where, all the colors are separated, and then adding that little slogan to it. I do like that. So that's my favorite so far.
I agree. I like the second one and then putting that quote at the bottom of it.
When you guys say second one, are you talking about
Slide
slide
2.
3? Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Is it slide 2 or slide 3?
Yeah, this one right here.
Slide 2.
Mm-hmm.
Kim, can I email it to you? Can I email it to you? I just moved it so we could look at it. If I email it to you, will it pop up or no?
So that's not my city laptop. If I had hooked up my city laptop, yes.
It's definitely
grab it.
very easy to do it that way. So if we were looking at coming up with something that's final, we would be using the font that the city uses. I don't have access to that, so we'd have to be making it here. The United around the outside of the circle, there are only 4. We could evenly space it and put more on there. I don't know how you, or I could do a couple different and we could bring it back next.
Does the
next
city
month.
have a graphic designer?
It's Kim.
It's Kim? Okay.
I think we have.
She wears many hats.
Wow, okay.
But also, I mean, in the community, Joe's got a couple people that he can hook me up with too. The thing is, we have to get the right font as well, so.
Mindy?
I would do, instead of the black ring, I would probably do a slate or a gray. And then the NKC, I'm thinking not just of the stickers that you would put on your windows, but apparel that people might want. And so I would probably, for ease of printing and being able to do apparel, I probably would have that be white in color so that the T-shirt could throw, or it could be black T-shirt that would, so the NKC would be basically transparent. So that whatever T-shirt color or hat color or whatever apparel would show through there. And then as you're looking at the United around, one of the things that when we're doing screen printing and we're doing, people could take this logo and they could put it on their Cricut and whatever. You want to make sure that the font is bold enough that it's easy to do the screen printing. So yeah, looking at the font is really important, but making sure that there's enough edge space at the top. You know, I'll just take the red one at the top, make sure there's enough head space and bottom space for the printing, because if it gets too close, it makes it really the apparel printers do not like it, and even the sticker printers might. And I personally think that whatever we can do to make the Uniteds pop.
Yeah, I tried gray there, and the United did not pop. That's why I went back to black, because I was thinking the same thing.
It may need some shadowing underneath it, like a white shadow. Oh, no, you're good.
Just, the other thing is, if you did a billboard, you want it to be as easily to read on a billboard as it is on the sticker on the window of a business. So when I talk to people about logos, I ask them to think of it on a business card and how hard is it going to be to read if you've got too little of font, or then how is it going to look on a big billboard. And it's frustrating sometimes for them because they have this great cool idea of what they want a logo to be, but you want to be able to use it. What if you do decide to do a billboard right there at Armour above Quick Trip? You want it to be as easily read as on that door front. So just think about that as you're going through the final processes of the graphic design. Graphic designers are wonderful, but they don't always think about the application of how we actually use it in marketing materials.
Thank you. I do have a question, and this may be for Kim or Mayor DeLong, but say we do want to put it on apparel and we charge a small fee. Are we allowed to do that? And would those funds go back into the EIC so that we can use it for further events or retreats or things we need to help further the mission?
So in my previous jurisdictions, we have had committees that have had their budget line turn into it's called an enterprise fund, that would allow them to have monies to come in, and it stays within that program fund, if that makes sense. So I've had previous public art ones specifically that sold things, and then that went back into their specific pot. The challenge is, there's a lot of nuances in there, but I'm happy to talk with you guys as you guys, progress through your strategic plan and those type of items.
Thank you.
I had one more comment just about the tagline. So I think what we're trying to say then is just that, like, this is where, like, change is starting, right? Like, we're making an effort to change the way people think and the way people approach these topics. I was wondering if change begins here might be more, I don't know, just like substantive and just kind of makes more sense. Like it also kind of lets you know change begins here at this business, like where you are. It begins in NKC, right? So that's just a thought about the tagline to give it a little more of a punch, I guess.
Yeah, that sounds good. Okay, are there any questions, comments about the logo from the community or the committee at this time? Okay, so then we'll move it forward into our committee updates. We have 3 committees at this time. One of them is People of North Kansas City. The next one is Communication and the website. And then the last one is any additional small group updates. So People of North Kansas City, I believe that's April.
That's me.
Oh, sorry.
I did the first one, but it was someone that I knew, and we talked about, branching out and getting other people. But actually, we have been asked to help fill seats. So Jess and I were talking, and I'm going to plan on doing interviews with people, sorry to keep my focus over there, people from different boards and commissions and committees that we can show and then keep on the city website and click on ours along with what are the openings. Because that is one of our goals, is to reach out and get people that aren't already involved and help build our diversity within our government. So that's going to be our next task, is to interview people from the boards and commissions. And I think I'll even pull a clip, of one of the meetings and how it looks like, and how long is the term, and how often do you meet, and what kind of work do you do. So that's what we've started, and I'll get that going.
Sounds great, Lisa. Thank you. Communication website.
No updates at this time. Do you have any, Brandy?
Not at this time.
Okay.
Okay. And then any additional small group updates?
Maybe, I don't know if our group counts as a small group. We were identified, myself, Tara, and Daniel, to kind of think about RFP language and like what kind of training we might recommend. But that was kind of before we found out about the GTI pieces. So we had just kind of shared some documents between us of a recent RFP that KU Spencer Museum of Art had posted for trainings for their staff and student workers and volunteers. So we just kind of looked at some of that language. Nothing, we decided once we heard, that there was kind of some thoughts already kind of going at the city, we just kind of paused. We didn't move forward with anything, but we do have access to RFP language from a couple of different samples if it's ever needed, so.
All right. Thank you very much. Are there any other groups that we're missing or anything else we need to discuss about small groups or committees or subcommittees? All right. Any announcements? And I'm not for sure if it's an announcement or could be included as an announcement. I do have a suggestion I wanted to bring up to the committee. I wasn't for sure. I know we talked about it, but I'd like to see if we can bring on a community liaison, just someone who would kind of help us out as needed, if I may. I'd like to propose or nominate that Mindy joins our team as a community liaison. I think she has a lot of good insight that can help us out moving forward. She's been at a few of our meetings and has made a couple of suggestions that I think maybe we could look into or develop for the good of our committee. Anyone have any thoughts about that or implementing a committee liaison to help us out?
I second that.
I do think that, because we're all kind of community liaisons, no offense, my friend. But I think we would have to define what their purpose is and what their function is in collaboration with the committee within the bylaws. I mean, just, I think, I love the idea. I think we need as much input from the community as we can get, because so many people are impacted. You know, all 4,500 of us are impacted, so I think it's a great idea. I just want to make sure we kind of think through those two chunks, how we define it and how we spell it out.
Okay.
I would agree. I love the idea. Maybe we should add it to the next work session as, just to define it and what we're looking for and expectations. So someone who is maybe picked, and maybe it is put into the bylaws as well, if that's something, you know, a true volunteer position within the committee as well.
All right. And then, have we already pre-planned our next work session?
We have not. While we're getting started, I don't know if we want to go ahead and then pre-schedule for 2 weeks after. So we're meeting every 2 weeks, basically.
I really like that idea. I think it keeps us on task, and it keeps, keeps us remembering like which week is which, right? Even though it was hard this time with 4th of July, but it does keep the momentum going. think
I
that's a
don't
good
know what kind of burden that would bring to the city.
There would be a little bit, are you guys anticipating having these work sessions televised again?
No.
No.
And it wasn't last week either. No. We could also use the Parks building. I don't know what the hours for the Parks building are. We tried to do it outside, and that was just crazy, trying to reach out to everyone when it was raining and get it changed. So I'd prefer an inside location, but it doesn't need to be televised, and it doesn't have to be specifically here either.
So if you could give me, I may need to find a pinch hitter for myself. I'm so sorry. I'll be out of the city on that, because I believe that'd be the 22nd.
Yeah, I'll actually be gone too, but. Oh, well, maybe we're gonna scrap this one. You know what, though? I think that's okay this time, because I think we're really close on the strategic plan. We should be getting probably a final draft, and we have some of our things here set up that we could start looking at in our smaller groups.
Okay. So no work session, right?
Not
And then
yet.
not for this month at least.
Yeah, unless we break out into our smaller groups and decide it really has to happen.
Personally, I do think we need at least one liaison from the community, even though we are a community, all of us are. I do think it's something, that particular item is something we need to have done.
What about the 29th? Because then it'd be 2 more weeks, because this is a 5 Thursday month.
Yeah, I'm gone, but I don't have to be here, guys. You can go on without me.
We would never.
It's really okay. It's okay.
And the 29th of July works for me, but
We could also do it like city council does, which is an hour before the meeting. So we could do a 6 to 7 as our work session, discuss the community liaison role, and then we can re-review the strategic plan. I think we want to also nail down, like, what does a retreat look like? How would we hire a consultant to help us through that process? So like what city machinery we would need to work through to get that to happen. Because, before we know it, it's fall. And so
yeah.
I think if we can get some of those wheels moving, that would be great. And then I have just a dumb question. I apologize for this. The doodle poll, like, I'm wondering at the bottom of the agendas, could we include upcoming events and like who's covering them? Because I know we talked about it and then I just lost track of it because I was out of town for a while. And so do we have any upcoming events that we need to cover?
I'm sure we do. We only covered June last month, so we haven't discussed July yet.
Okay. So I know several people will be gone the 29th. I feel like we should still meet. I feel like, because who are we missing right now? We're missing Jess
Bess, Jess and Bess.
Jess and Bess. So I feel like they'll be here on the 29th. And we can still get some stuff done. And then let the ones who will be gone, just kind of keep them updated on what we did. So then by the first Thursday of August, they'll be caught up to speed. You can ask questions, or second. Sorry.
Okay.
Any input from the committee?
Would the 29th work for the city as an alternate?
I need to check the availability of this room. Unsure. I just say I don't have, I think next time I'll bring my laptop, that way I have access to all my calendars. I can definitely get back with, should I get back with Brent?
Lisa? Or, no, me?
I won't be here.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. You just email me.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay.
Brandy's email has changed, but I'm pretty sure Crystal got it updated in the most current list. But I can send it to you just in case.
And is that a 7 PM or 6 PM? Sorry.
We can do 6 or 7, up to the committee, whatever works for you all. I know everyone has work and things like that.
I'm good with either,
Okay.
as long as we don't make it a 3-hour meeting.
Yeah, let's, for the interest of time, if we can all make it at 6, let's do 6 and prepare to be there for maybe an hour and a half, so as to not take up everybody's time. And then are there any,
I'm
I'll
looking
table
at
that.
events now. There's the Friday night concerts this Friday. And then it looks like there's a movie in the park later this month. Trying to find the date. July 23rd.
And do people, like for art in the park, did you guys bring your own table and tablecloth, or what?
No,
The lowdown on that.
We talked to Victoria ahead of that, and we actually, the first night we had a table under a tent, and that was the tent they used for the kids' art the next day. And then the next one, we were gonna be in the tent, like the main city tent, but what we ended up doing is Tara just walked the flyers around, which, you know, we were doing that from inside the tent as well, just to get out and see people. So I think it worked out really well. I will tell you the feedback that I got was we need a basketball court. I hear that almost every time I ask in the community. It's like the first thing many people have said. And then somebody was asking about getting some of the buildings on the historical registry. So, and I think that was basically most of it. I don't know if you got any other feedback.
No, not really. I handed out some flyers to the vendors and talked to some of the vendors too, but people were mostly aware and were appreciative of the flyer. So.
Cool.
Okay, the rest of the agenda, if there are no further announcements from the committee or the community.
Ooh, steal one more opportunity. There are 2 openings still on the planning commission. So as we were talking about boards, there we go. That's it.
What's the
Yeah.
planning commission?
Yeah, what,
That's a pretty important role, but they only meet if they have something to meet on. So it's monthly, but they only meet if there's something to meet on. And I'll probably mess it up. You want to just explain it? No, you don't. When a new building is coming, it goes in front of the planning commission to make sure that it's following all of the, Kim, am I right?
It could be a lot. It could be long-range planning, council calling, it could be variance. There's all kinds of a variety of
Yeah.
planning, and I don't want to say zoning, because a lot of that's zoning adjustments, but it's kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
And generally, I think I'm looking for someone now that understands the vision of the future of the community, and that'll help contribute to the decisions that board has to make. So if I were to boil it down into a very short,
And we have 2 positions open. We have been asked as a committee to help branch out and try to find someone that could fill that spot. So that'll be the first person that we interview. I'm going to walk down the street and interview the head of that committee, so.
no, and I appreciate you doing that, and for other boards, and I've talked to Kim a little about this before. You know, part of encouraging people to get involved is, again, having that deeper understanding of what these boards and committees do, even something as simple as what time do they meet, because that, you know, means a lot to our schedules. So I appreciate you bringing that up tonight.
I would also like to say, you would be able to tell if we were all here at summer, so we don't have a lot of people, but we do have a vacancy here in Ward 4. We only have 1 representative from Ward 4. So we are still looking for a second person from Ward 4 for the Equity and Inclusion Committee.
Is there any other skill set you're looking for planning
Yeah.
commission? Like, you know,
Job description.
I mean, there is a deeper board description online in our boards and committees
Okay.
document. I just don't have that.
no,
I
I can look that up. I just wondered if,
Yeah.
if you're looking for a lawyer or an HR person or,
No, I'm not looking
Architect.
anyone from any particular, I guess, trade per se. Like I said, this is someone that just understands generally the direction, and generally the strategic plan of the community and our master plan and the things that have kind of come before us. Because over time, we do update those things as well, and that ultimately comes through the planning commission. The latest big project I can recall is the bike master plan, and they reviewed that a couple times. Ended up adding it to the back of the master plan. They also participated heavily in the community for all ages process, which I should kick over because Kim did more of that. But you know that they were the right fit for some projects like that sometimes too. And so they don't meet every month either. I don't even think they've met in the last 2 or 3 months. So it's generally as needed. So it's not even an every month commitment.
Thank you, everyone, for your comments. Any other announcements? Okay. This meeting of the Equity and Inclusion Committee for North Kansas City has been adjourned at 8:33 p.m. Thank you all who have watched, who joined us today in person, and I hope you all have a good evening.
thank you.